Hello, I'm Pete Bellotta. Whether you're an aspiring woodworker or someone who prefers home construction and remodeling, you'll appreciate the versatility of the Jiigsaw and the reciprocating saw. Designed primarily for detail work, a jigsaw is used to cut circles, curves, and intricate patterns in thin boards and other materials. The reciprocating saw, on the other hand, is a larger tool intended primarily for rough cutting. In this program, you'll learn how these tools work and how to use them safely and efficiently. While jigsaws and reciprocating saws are designed for different tasks, they both operate in the same way. That is, they convert the rotary motion of an electric motor into reciprocating motion at the blade. Some models also provide orbital action. This causes the blade to move in and out of the cut, allowing the saw to cut more aggressively while reducing blade wear. For greater maneuverability and control, this particular tool is equipped with a handle that rotates 360 degrees. In a typical jigsaw, the motor drives a pair of equal diameter gears, each of which has a small dowel. The dowels engage slotted weights on the blade shaft. The lower weight is rigidly attached to the shaft, while the upper weight moves independently. As the motor drives the counter-rotating gears, the dowels move the weights up and down. Since the lower weight is attached to the shaft, the movement of the lower gear causes the blade to travel up and down. During this time, the counter-rotating upper gear causes the upper weight to slide along the shaft. This counteracts the weight transfer near the blade, which cancels out vibration to help reduce user fatigue. To generate fore and aft movement in a typical reciprocating saw, the motor drives a gear set that rotates a large beveled gear. On the opposite side of this gear is an eccentric, which fits into a slot on a square shaft. As the gear turns, the eccentric moves the shaft back and forth to produce the saw's carving action. While all jigsaws and reciprocating saws operate in much the same way, be aware that the internal components will vary depending on the manufacturer. Now that you have a good idea how these saws work, let's take a look at the various types of blades they use. Jigsaw and reciprocating saw blades come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes. In fact, it's the vast number of blade choices that gives these tools such versatility. In order for either tool to operate at peak efficiency, however, it's vital that the blade is correctly matched to the application. When selecting a blade, the most important considerations are teeth per inch, or TPI, tooth set, and blade construction. Whether you're using a jigsaw or a reciprocating saw, ideally there should be 3 teeth in contact with the material at all times. When there are more than 3 teeth in the work, cutting performance declines since the waste can't be expelled quickly enough. In contrast, a blade with fewer teeth in the work is prone to damage since the working portion of the blade can become overheated. Generally, wood-cutting blades have 6 to 12 teeth per inch. Blades with less teeth cut faster but leave a rough edge, while blades with more teeth cut slower but produce a smoother finish. When cutting metals, use a blade with at least 18 teeth per inch. Tooth set, or profile, is another factor that affects cutting performance. The most common blade profiles are the wavy set and the raker set. In a wavy set, groups of 3 teeth are alternately set in opposite directions and separated by a single straight tooth. This design forms a serpentine cutting edge best suited for metal cutting blades. In a raker set, the teeth are grouped in 3s with the teeth set right, left, and center. This set is common on general purpose blades. When it comes to blade construction, there are 2 types, high-speed steel and bimetal. High-speed steel blades are ideal for cutting hardwoods such as oak and cherry. These blades are also good for cutting non-ferrous metals, steel, reinforced plastic, and chipboard. A bimetal blade consists of 2 different metals, in this case a strip of high-speed steel welded to a carbon steel backing. The high-speed steel provides a durable cutting edge, while the carbon steel makes the blade more flexible. Flexibility is particularly important in a reciprocating saw blade, which is why these blades almost always have bimetal construction. Bimetal blades are suitable for both metal and wood applications. Changing the blade on older jigsaws and reciprocating saws usually requires an Allen wrench. As the retaining screw is loosened, it releases a clamp, allowing the blade to be lifted off the alignment pin. Install the new blade by placing the shank inside the clamp and over the pin, and then tighten the Allen screw to secure the blade. Be aware that reciprocating saw blades may be installed with the teeth facing up or down to suit your cutting requirements. Warning: always unplug the tool before changing a blade and allow the old blade to cool down first before removing it. Most jigsaws and reciprocating saws produced today are equipped with quick-release blade changing systems, eliminating the need for any tools. Although saw blades are consumable items, blade life can be significantly extended by properly regulating the tool's operating speed. Generally, the tool should be set at maximum speed when cutting wood. For metal cutting, the tool should be operated at a much slower speed to avoid overheating the blade. This is why most saws are equipped with variable speed control. Now it's time to put these tools to work, starting with the jigsaws. Just remember, even though these tools are much safer and quieter than their larger counterpart, eye protection is always a must. To cross-cut a board, clamp a straight edge to the workpiece the appropriate distance from the cut line. Next, place the base of the saw flat on the work, making sure the blade is not contacting the edge. With the speed set to maximum, squeeze the trigger and start the cut. Feed the saw at a steady rate while keeping the base flush against the straight edge. Use your free hand to support the board as you near the end of the cut. When the cut is complete, release the trigger and allow the saw to come to a complete stop. For narrower crosscuts, use an edge guide, which typically comes with the tool. A jigsaw can also be used to make bevel cuts by loosening the appropriate knob or screw and tilting the saw base to the desired angle. Tilt settings are indicated on the bevel scale. To cut a circle, begin by drilling a starter hole on the waist side of the cut line. Next, insert the compass point, which is part of the edge guide accessory, into the center of the circle. With the saw unplugged, attach the edge guide to the base, and then align the guide to the compass point and the blade to the starter hole. Finally, secure the edge guide on both ends. Caution: before starting the saw, be sure the blade is not contacting the material. As you make the cut, hold the guide down with one hand and be careful not to force the blade through the material. Always let the blade do the work. As you can see, the cutting guide works very nicely. Incidentally, since most jigsaw blades are designed to cut on the upstroke, always make your cuts with the best side of the workpiece facing down. This will limit any splintering to the back side of the piece. If you're using a reverse tooth blade, which is made for cutting on the downstroke, make sure the best side of the workpiece faces up. Reverse tooth blades are designed to reduce splintering on the top surface of veneers and plywood. One of the most practical uses for a jigsaw is to cut openings in wall paneling to accommodate electrical outlets. To make these rectangular openings, drill a starter hole on the inside of the marked area and then cut along the first side. When you reach the end of the cut line, back off about 1 inch and then make a curved cut that flows into the adjacent line. Continue this process until the waste falls off. To square the opening, cut out the triangular pieces of waste at each corner. Rather than drill a starter hole to make an inside cut, you can use your jigsaw for plunge cutting. Here's how. Begin by placing the saw inside the marked area. Using the front of the base as a pivot, tip the saw forward until the blade is clear of the workpiece. Now, start the saw and gradually lower the blade into the material until the tool is upright and the base is sitting flat on the work. By the way, since there's an increased risk of blade breakage when making a plunge cut, never use a scroll blade or a reverse tooth blade. Also, I recommend wearing a full face shield for added protection. Scroll blades have narrow bodies designed exclusively for cutting tight curves. To make cutting intricate patterns easier, many jigsaws have a scrolling feature which allows the blade to swivel independently of the saw. The scrolling feature enables you to cut a tight radius by simply turning a knob on the top of the saw rather than turning the saw itself. While a scroll blade can make quick work of a tight curve, you'll find it's tough going in materials thicker than 3/4 of an inch. For that job, use a standard blade, but first make some kerf cuts. Here's what I mean. With the curve laid out on the workpiece, make a series of straight cuts from the edge of the board up to the cut line all along the radius. Now, cut along the layout line. The kerf cuts allow the waste to fall off in pieces, which provides greater clearance for the blade. Unlike a jigsaw, there's nothing gentle about a reciprocating saw, which is why it's a favorite for demolition work. That said, make sure you're prepared with the proper safety gear before getting started. When cutting material at the bench, always wear a clean pair of safety glasses along with hearing protection. For demolition work, upgrade your eye protection to either safety goggles or a full face shield. Before making a cut, be sure the material is properly secured. Next, position the base of the saw against the material without the blade making contact. While holding the tool with both hands, depress the trigger to start the blade in motion. Now, move the blade into the material, allowing the saw to do the work. When the cut is complete, release the trigger and wait for the blade to stop before setting the tool down. Some reciprocating saws, particularly cordless models like this one, have an electric brake that stops the blade instantly. Now, let me show you how to make a plunge cut. To begin, place the saw inside the area to be cut and rest the tip of the blade on the start point. Next, tilt the saw back using the base as a pivot. Now, start the saw and slowly tilt the base forward until the blade begins cutting the material. Continue cutting until the saw is perpendicular to the cutting area and then complete the cut. When making a plunge cut into a closed area, such as a wall cavity, have the base set toward the front of the blade. This will ensure that the blade does not penetrate the cavity any deeper than necessary. When making blind plunge cuts with a reciprocating saw, always use the base as a depth stop to prevent cutting into unwanted objects. To cut metals such as pipe or angle iron, secure the material in a vise, making sure it's supported as close to the cut line as possible. With the appropriate blade installed, apply some cutting oil along its length. This will prolong the life of the blade by reducing cutting temperature. Now, cut the material using the same technique shown previously. Jig and reciprocating saws require virtually no maintenance other than periodically cleaning dust and debris from the housing vents. To avoid damage, never apply solvents or cleaning agents to the tool housing or the handle. Besides acting as a depth stop, the saw base can be adjusted to different settings to help you get the maximum use from your blades, particularly if you normally cut narrow stock, such as 1/2-inch pipe. This is because the blade typically has a cutting stroke of only 1 inch, which means only a few teeth do the cutting at any one time. By adjusting the base to different settings, you force the normally unused areas of the blade to do the cutting. Now, let's review the key points of the program. Designed primarily for detail work, a jigsaw is used to cut circles, curves, and intricate patterns in thin boards and other materials. The reciprocating saw, on the other hand, is a larger tool intended primarily for rough cutting. While jigsaws and reciprocating saws are designed for different tasks, they both operate in the same way. That is, they convert the rotary motion of an electric motor into reciprocating motion at the blade. Some models also provide orbital action. This causes the blade to move in and out of the cut, allowing the saw to cut more aggressively while reducing blade wear.